Hello, Toronto commuters. So, on the Cycling in Toronto Facebook page, I noticed this post. Someone says cyclists, more and more cyclists, at least they didn't say most cyclists are disobeying the rules, but they say more and more cyclists, and they've got a particular example. Um, and basically, their complaint was at Dundas and Brock. They were right there between where that car would be, where there was another car, and the sidewalk. So the cyclist was like hanging out there, and some other cyclist was, I guess, coming across here on the sidewalk and crossed this pedestrian crossing and then went between them and that car to go south. That's what from their description, that's what it seems like. So the cyclist was basically avoiding cycling along here and making a right turn there. And then they say cyclists should check out the Ontario Cycling Handbook and learn how to do things right. And so going through this handbook, the part of it that seems like it pertains to this would be like this whole section. And it's got a bunch of useful stuff in it, like this part for making a right turn. And like everybody should, read this if they haven't already. If you're not switching from driving to cycling, and so if you've never, learned all of the rules of the road from a driving perspective, and you're just starting out as a cyclist who's been a pedestrian and a transit user maybe in the past, then this is full of useful information. But if this is what you follow for doing stuff, it's not going to work. Like they say, you should always go straight. Yeah, straight line riding. Riding in a straight line is the key to riding in traffic. And I think the real key is being able to ride in a straight line while you are shoulder checking, like while you're looking around you. But and they do mention shoulder checking. And yeah, it's vital for making safe turns in traffic. But they don't really talk about merging and unmerging from one lane to the other in order to let drivers past you when they're going faster and in order to get back in the lane when the lane is clear. And that's the only way you can safely use roads like this, like Dundas West, where the driving traffic is doing 40 and you're doing 20, and getting through the intersections is really important for drivers, when they're trying to get through here at a reasonable speed, and where the curb lanes alternate between parking and these clear spaces, and they're clear through the intersections, of course, so you've got all these opportunities to switch lanes in order to keep cycling at a reasonable speed while you're also letting drivers pass you at double your speed, and then wait till the lane's clear and then get back in the main lane. So there's 3 different places where you can ride your bike. Along Dundas, there's between the rails, there's right in the middle of the main travel lane, there's this very narrow spot between the right rail and the parking lane for when you're trying to go sort of fast, faster than you want to be going if somebody opens their door in front of you. And then there's the edge of the parking lane where you can't really go fast at all because you could just get doored. And I mean, I don't want to be there going anything like faster than a jogging pace because then getting doored could send me to the hospital. Last time I was using Dundas, like I have done so much cycling on Dundas. Last time I was using Dundas, as I'm going through here, I use all three of these different parts of the road. And so I'm not cycling in a straight line because I'm merging between all these different places. And each time I go to merge, I got to do a shoulder check first and make sure that I'm merging into some place that I can safely get to. So last time I was going through here, just to give you an example, I had a driver make a sketchy U-turn in front of me. They didn't yield to me when they were supposed to, and so I had to stop for them. So I was making sure that the drivers behind me were not following too close because I knew at any time somebody might do something stupid like this and illegal like this, and then I could get rear-ended. So if like drivers are following me way too close, I just get into this spot here and wait for them to pass and, go slow while traffic is going past me. So that was one thing that happened. And then further up here, I've got one driver behind me, not following too close, so I'm all right. And then another driver turning left onto the road. They could totally see me, no visibility problems, cut me off, turning right in front of me. I had to come to a complete stop. So I'm a very skilled cyclist. I'm a very experienced cyclist, so I'm willing to do that stuff. I know to expect that kind of illegal moves by drivers. And so that's fine. And I don't bike on the sidewalk because I know all these crazy tricks which are not in the cycling handbook. So that's why I'm on the road. But I totally understand why anybody would use the sidewalk and use the pedestrian crossings. And in places like this, a bunch of cyclists do that. It's not most cyclists. It's like a third of them. And I made this other video where I actually videotaped a few different intersections to see what really the average of cyclist behavior is. And it's like 1/3 of these cyclists through places like this will use the sidewalks and use the pedestrian crossings and jump the stoplights, as in they'll wait for it to be clear and then go through even if it's red, just so that they're not sharing the intersection with the drivers when the light turns green. And that's safer for them to do. So that's the thing. In places like this, like the comment that I made on this person's post was, because they were claiming to be a driver and a cyclist, I said, like, don't you find that when you're driving along here, you get a lot more opportunity to just use the road as per the laws than when you're cycling along here? This is also the part of Toronto where the most amount of cycling takes place. Like this, in this area, cycling is more popular than everywhere else in the city. And Dundas is, there is no there's no cycling facility that allows you to not use Dundas West. Like the nearest cycling facility in this whole area is all the way up here on Bloor. So if somebody's doing a long distance commute east to west, they can go ahead and use Bloor. But there's nothing on Queen. Queen is pretty much the same as Dundas. College is pretty much the same as Dundas. All the north-south streets here are awesome for cycling. That's one of the reasons that there's so much cycling happening in the area. You can sort of go east-west through this route, but there is no good east-west routes that go through this area except for like Argyle, which is good if you're just going a couple of blocks, but like anytime I come into the downtown and I'm going through here, I just use Dundas, and I use Dundas in the main travel lanes because I've figured out how to merge and unmerge, and I can do 35 kph or even 40 if I'm right in the middle of the lane here. But lots of cyclists can't do that. Lots of cyclists don't know really how to go back and forth between these, across the tracks. And even I'm not always up for doing this kind of thing, so I end up going super duper slow in the parking lane. So I can completely understand why a bunch of cyclists are just not willing to do this. If you're doing like 15 kph or something like that at the most, then this traveling in a straight line thing is going to absolutely get you road raged on by drivers. It is not going to work. So my problem with this is like this cyclist handbook, it's a good start, but it doesn't actually give cyclists the tools that they need to deal with places like this, which they can't actually avoid and which are not going to get bike lanes anytime soon. And like the rules of the road, they're great, but they only come into play when there's an accident. They're not enforced. So as a cyclist, I can't expect them to protect me unless some driver hits me, and by then it's too late. So like after there's an accident, whoever is breaking the law, if there's some video evidence or something like that to prove that, then whoever's breaking the law gets in trouble. But for the most part, cyclists get hazed by drivers like almost hitting them, cutting them off, stuff like that. Check this guy out. This person is going the wrong way on this road where there is no easy way to go north through here anywhere on a bike. You can't really use Dufferin. Dufferin's a total kill zone. Beaconsfield is it just gets really weird trying to use it. Maybe it's actually one way going the wrong way. I've had it's also no, it does go north, but in order to get onto it, you've got to find your way through this maze. They even put in a counterflow lane on Gladstone going all the way up here because of this problem. But further north along Gladstone, you're not allowed to go north through it. And I end up doing so all the time because there's just not always, I guess if there was like enough wayfinding signage and stuff like that, then this would work. But this is definitely one of those places where cyclists end up disobeying the law and turning right here, and there's enough space to do it, and the drivers allow it. Anyway, I wish the handbook did discuss this aspect of like shoulder checking in order to merge between the different lanes, in order to use the lane at high speed on a bike when it's safe to do so, when it's clear behind you, which on Dundas West happens all the time. Like, get in these situations all the time where the lane is totally clear and I end up cycling for a couple of blocks totally unimpeded. And then the drivers show up behind me and they want to do 40, and I'm right here going fairly slow. And that's fine. It just sucks when somebody turns in front of you and you've got somebody else tailgating your ass, which can kind of happen like before you really know it. So this kind of place, it's great to use, but you got to have so many skills, and those skills are not contained in here. And the cycling handbook kind of ignores a lot of these realities. And of course, it ignores the reality of like driver behavior. And I guess they don't want to say, like, look, you have to get out of the way of drivers and go slower than you want to go to accommodate them and stuff like that. Like, they don't want to tell cyclists that. So instead, they just give us this stuff that doesn't really equate to us actually being able to use the road properly. And then the infrastructure doesn't really work for us. So it all adds up to this one cyclist being annoyed at the other cyclists breaking the law, the other cyclists being annoyed at having to break the law in order to be safe and also going a lot slower than they'd like to be going, and drivers being annoyed with the cyclist behavior being kind of unpredictable, and people like me being annoyed with not being able to just go through at a decent pace and use the road, and not having the luxury of both obeying the law and being able to just use the road relatively unimpeded. So that's my complaint. The cyclist handbook, combined with the shape of the roads, combined with the lack of the right-of-way laws enforcement, just leads to a whole bunch of nonsense. Hopefully, at some point in the future, we can put this behind us because, like I said, this is the most popular place in the whole city for cycling. Because most of it is great for cycling. And then there's these east-west corridors, which have no cycling infrastructure. I gotta say, this area of College, this area of Dundas, this area of Queen, it sucks. It's so annoying. Anyway, have a great commute today, tomorrow, and until I post another video. And see you out there.